The Invincible special called Adam Eve. Something giving some people a little bit of a taste of something of Invincible before we get into season 2. I know people have been waiting a long time for Invincible
Mhm.
season 2, but like I said, with animation, it takes a long time, especially when the animation is as good as Invincible is.
Mhm.
It takes a minute. So Nick saw it. I did not get a chance to see it, and he's
Oh,
dying to
damn.
talk about it. So Nick, give us your thoughts on Adam Eve.
Okay, so the
Me.
Adam. Okay, so Invincible, the special episode Adam Eve, is giving this backstory to Gillian Jacobs' character, Samantha Wilkins, or Adam Eve. And something that I think really didn't get touched on in the show and leads her to, just in retrospect, makes her one of the best characters on that show. I already loved her performance by Gillian Jacobs. And here she's voiced by, I'm looking up the actor's name. Uh, and they are really not they're really making me work for this actor's name. But moving on, so this is a flashback episode. This is set, I think, a couple years before the events of Invincible, and this is going through kind of a lot of the same beats of Invincible's pilot, of the character discovering their powers, first time out using it, getting into the first real conflict that she's experiencing with it. And here you also have characters, Dr. Brandyworth, who's voiced by Stephen Root. You have this kind of shady government agency who is voiced agent or organization that's run by Lance Reddick's character, and kind of how despicable it is. And I did not expect this to be as tragic and heartbreaking as it is, because not only is this one of the best like single episodes of the show, it's also the most gorgeously animated. It has one of the highlights of action in this episode, and it kind of makes it even more frustrating that we haven't gotten a good Green Lantern adaptation, because how Adam Eve uses her powers in this, it puts every single Green Lantern to shame. It has some spectacular displays, like from swinging tires to creating parachutes to creating buzz saws, giving herself her own like little her own like suit of armor. And the voice actor for Eve in this is Jaslyn Ione, who's her first voice acting credit, and she captures so much of being that young superhero and the exhilaration of it, along with this profound sadness and anger to her backstory. And it makes every single scene with Eve in the original show, it makes her character that much more tragic. And on top of that, you also get new layers to her parents, who I think were kind of painted more as this like kind of super villain evil light, especially her dad, who is just the textbook of misogyny. But even this special kind of gives him a couple more layers to him.
Okay. So you think there was a really strong purpose of why they gave Adam Eve a special, as opposed to anyone else? You think it kind of solidifies her as one of the strongest characters in the show?
Mm-hmm. It definitely does. I think the real ethos of creating a special like this, and you see a lot of other shows kind of try and do this thing, and more often than not, it doesn't really work. But I feel like they had a lot more meat to Eve's backstory, and I feel like that deserved being fleshed out, especially because once you know her backstory off of the show, it makes her character that much more tragic, and the circumstances behind her, because this ending of this episode, it's heartbreaking. And this kid is only 12 years old, and she's going through these circumstances, and she still chooses to just be a hero. Even in the run of the show, she chooses to leave the team and actually go out and try to save the world as best she can. And it's kind of inspiring to see. It's this perfect standalone episode to kind of shift the perspective of the show, because we're so tied to Mark in the normal run of Invincible.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody made a point with this show's Invincible, comparing it to another Amazon superhero show,
Mhm,
The Boys, of
mhm.
where that is so bleak and kind of
Yeah.
de- depressing in a way,
Mhm,
with superhero content, and then this is kind of it has the reality of superheroes, but also has a world where
mhm.
there's a need for superheroes, and you see that kind of need there and the function that they kind of serve. But
Mhm.
again, I mean, in Invincible, they're fighting also
Yeah.
like extra, aliens and things like
Mhm,
that, and so it's a little bit of bigger threats here
mhm.
than as
It's
opposed
a
to the boys.
Yeah, and Invincible, it's a little bit a bigger threat, and I feel like that comes down to the ethos behind each of the source material. Robert Kirkman with Invincible, I think he wanted to throw back to that kind of like golden age of superheroes, but take a little more of a gritty and realistic and in a lot of cases more violent spin. And with the boys, Garth Ennis just hates superheroes. He hates that he has to write a comic book about them, and he wants to punish you for it.
Hmm. Yeah. Any downside to this special at all?
Not really. Even like pacing wise, the special is only an hour long. And it moves so fast because it goes straight from Eve as a child experiencing her kind of feeling of isolation from a lot of her other peers, the mistreatment that she has from her family, to this really warm dynamic that she has with Stephen Root's Dr. Brandyworth, and the horrific treatment of Lance Reddick's character Erickson, who is the government suit that's trying to hunt her down. And also, you have Jacob Tremblay, who plays another failed experiment of this program. And his angst in his voice, he just captures so much of that resentment and that jealousy
Mm,
of this sibling who has all the power and none of the flaws that him and his other siblings have.
mm, okay. So, what would be your rating for Adam Eve?
Oh, this special, I give this a solid peak. I think this does exactly what a special that focuses on another character does. It adds new dynamics to them, it gives them their own self contained, compelling story, and it potentially could lead to new threads into season two. And also showing off the improvements in the animation, showing off new things that the creators want to do with season two, especially in the action set pieces in this. I get this peak.
Mm, nice, nice. Yeah. So, a peek from Nick for the special Adam Eve. Very nice. Yeah, I will be checking it out pretty soon. When is Invincible season 2 coming out?
It's been a long time, and they finally announced a date a couple weeks ago. They said it's coming. The first four episodes are coming, are going to premiere on November 4th, and the rest of the season it's a couple weeks later. So Amazon is trying to do that same thing that Netflix does with their shows, and that's splitting up the release dates of each half of the season.
Okay, trying to do that. I think they're increasing the price of Prime and everything. Like most streaming services, they're going to increase the
Mhm.
price. They're trying to make up for that all that money they spent on Rings of Power. I guess. Ready for Maturity said the parents. He's talking about Adam and Eve. Her parents. First season felt like the Dursleys from Harry Potter.
Yeah, and I think in the first season they did, and this, even though there still are kind of awful people, and it's kind of a real mind boggle that you have a character like Omni Man in this show who is a genocidal maniac, at least that we've been shown in the first season, and still Eve's dad is the worst person on the show, and it's mostly just because he's so misogynistic, and he's just so belittling of Eve because she's a woman. But even in this
Mm,
show, you can kind of read more into that.
mm. Wow. Very, very nice.